Hi everyone, welcome to AA Running. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to build an aerobic base for running. The concept of building an aerobic base or aerobic base building is a very common idea that a lot of runners have probably heard about. Pretty much every training plan out there, every reasonable training plan is gonna have some form of a base training phase, and so this is a period of time of relatively low intensity and increase in volume, where the main goal is to increase your aerobic fitness and prepare your body for the harder training and races to come later in the season. Despite this being a really common and sort of a simple concept, a lot of runners make mistakes in this phase of training that limit their development. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the most common mistakes people make and give you some practical tips to improve your base phase of training. Tip number one is to tailor your base phase training to the specific race distance that you are preparing for. A lot of runners make the mistake of doing the same base training consisted of mostly just easy, slow miles, maybe at a high mileage for them, regardless of whether they're training for a mile, a 5K, or a marathon. But the reality is that each of these events have different specific demands, and you should tailor your training to address them. So, for example, in a marathon, the pace that you try to run, so your marathon pace, should be really comfortable at the beginning, right? It's not necessarily very fast relative to your maximum speed, so it's relatively comfortable in terms of the mechanical stress. Now, on the other hand, in a mile or a 5K even, the pace in a race is fast enough, a high enough percentage of your maximum speed, that you're not really truly comfortable even at the beginning of a 5K or a mile. A totally different situation than in the marathon. And so you have to train your body to be comfortable with the mechanics of running fast when you're training for, let's say, a mile or a 5K, whereas that might be less of a concern when you're training for a marathon. One of the easiest ways and most effective ways to maintain and improve your efficiency at higher running speeds during the base phase is to incorporate lots of what we call strides. So strides are essentially relatively short, up to maybe 30 seconds, relatively short repeats, typically about 100 meters, run at about mile pace, or can be even slightly faster if you're feeling good. But it should really be by feel. And so something like 2 to 4 times 100 meter strides with full recovery, so that you're not generating any lactate, you're not stressing the anaerobic system of energy, and so mainly you're just trying to work on your running form and build that neuromuscular system so that your body can become comfortable with the motion of running fast. And so 2 to 4 times 100 meters of full recovery, 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5 days a week, it goes a long way to addressing your running form during the base phase. And so you can maintain your higher mileage, you can maintain that aerobic base while not really stressing your body too much, but you do need to do some work on running form and running fast, right? It's a mistake to do only slow running. Another way to approach strides is you can even do a standalone session. I do this sometimes, where you do 8 or 10 or 12 or even 20 times 100 meters in one session, one day, and that's just your workout for that day. And so you might do a 2-mile warm-up, go to a track, do let's say 12 times 100 meters, nice slow 100-meter jog in between, maybe a little walk-in. Again, full recovery is the idea. And you just do this, and then you cool down for another couple miles. So you can get a good 6, 7, 8 mile run in, and in the middle of that, you're getting almost a mile or maybe a mile worth of fast running at mile pace. And so one of the things you're going to discover is that not only is this not very stressful on the body, but a lot of times I feel better the day after doing strides than if I had not done any strides at all. Tip number 2 is to avoid anaerobic training during the aerobic base phase. Now this might seem relatively common sense, but a lot of people can get caught in the trap of needing to make their workouts count, if that makes sense. Or you have the whole no pain, no gain mentality, but that's not really the right mindset to have when it comes to aerobic base building. Not only is it important to do lots of low intensity and moderate intensity running below the lactic threshold, but it's also really important to avoid high intensity efforts above the lactic threshold, because when you exert yourself in an anaerobic fashion, your muscles produce a variety of byproducts such as lactate, and the pH of your muscles will drop, right? So you're generating this this acid, basically hydrogen ions in your muscles, and this acidification of your muscles is going to basically not only impair muscle function in your workout, but it also has lasting effects. So it's a well-known thing that if you do too many hard workouts, too much anaerobic training, not only do you have the injury risk of doing all that high intensity running, but if you're doing too much anaerobic training, your aerobic ability will be reduced. So there's a variety of enzymes that are part of the aerobic pathway, and these enzymes get impaired when they're put in acidic environments. And so if you basically create on a consistent basis an acidic environment in your muscles, you're going to lose some aerobic function. During the aerobic base phase, my advice is that whenever you are running at paces faster than your 1 hour race pace, which roughly correlates with the so-called lactic threshold, whenever you're running at faster than 1 hour race pace during your base phase, you want to make sure you run so in a very relaxed fashion with full recovery. So it's okay to run some intervals at 5K pace during base phase, but if you're going to run at 5K pace, you're going to need a lot more recovery in the base phase than you would if you're doing that workout in competition phase. So for example, if you're going to do something like 12 times 400 meters, maybe you would normally only do 1 minute or 90 seconds rest, but in base phase you might want to, if you're going to do that workout, you probably want to do it with 3 or 4 minutes rest. So basically full recovery, you don't allow the lactate in your body to accumulate. Tip number 3 is to practice running fast. So in addition to doing strides like I mentioned earlier, you want to include some other workouts such as 200 meter repeats. So maybe some longer reps, longer than 100 meters. So 200 meter repeats, something like 12 times 200 meters at 3K pace. So not super fast, but pretty quick, right? 3K pace with, again, full recovery, right? Remember what I just said. Anytime you're running faster than your lactic threshold, you want to make sure you're doing so in a relaxed fashion. So 12 times 200 meters, 3K pace with a 200 meter jog recovery, including some walk-ins. So that should really take you at least 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, if that makes sense. So at least 90 seconds, up to 2 minutes recovery for those 200 meter repeats. Another idea is to include hill sprints. And so again, you want to do these with really high intensity, but for a short duration, and then with full recovery. So you're not generating any lactate, but you're just basically improving your muscle power and improving the neural pathways that your body uses to run really fast. And so you want to get maximum muscle fiber recruitment as well. So something like 8 or maybe 10 seconds long, and then full recovery. So 2 or 3 minutes recovery. You could do. You could start off with just 3 or 4 of these and work up to maybe 6 or 8. Tip number 4 is to be gradual and sensible when you're increasing your mileage. And so the aerobic base phase is a perfect time to experiment with higher mileage because you're intentionally keeping the intensity of your workouts low, right? So you never want to increase both volume and intensity at the same time. So while you're keeping intensity really low, it's a great time to start running a little bit more than you've been running in the past. A lot of runners make the mistake of getting carried away though, and they increase their mileage too quickly, and consequently this results in either injury, illness, or overtraining. And so basically you end up just feeling really tired and bad. Your performance will suffer. So it's important to be gradual when you're increasing your mileage. So our tip is from season to season, so from one 6-month period to another, you shouldn't increase your mileage by more than about 5 to 10 miles per week. So for example, if one summer you're running 40 miles a week, then the following winter you probably don't want to try going higher than either 45 or 50 miles per week. So the key is to be gradual so that you are able to increase your mileage consistently year to year and enjoy long-term development. Tip number 5 is to incorporate some specific aerobic workouts into your aerobic-based training. It's a common misconception that in order to build your aerobic fitness, you just have to put in larger and larger volumes of easy running. Now, lots of easy mileage can definitely help improve your aerobic fitness, but there's also a variety of low to moderate intensity workouts that you can incorporate into your base phase training plan, which will increase your body's aerobic ability. One example is a moderate steady state run of 45 to 60 minutes at a pace about 1 minute per mile slower than 5K pace. So this lines up somewhat closely with marathon pace as well. And so this is a moderate intensity, something that in a race you could hold, for at least 2 hours. So something around marathon pace, or even perhaps a little bit slower. But it's significantly quicker than just your everyday easy pace. And so this is a workout you can include once or twice per week during your aerobic base training, and you will see tremendous benefit from this workout. Another example would be a progression run. And so a progression run is really simple. You start off at your normal easy pace, and then you gradually increase your speed until the end of the run, where you can work down towards even 5K pace or a bit slower. So a good length for a progression run is typically, you can do a variety of lengths, but I like to start off with about 30 minutes of a progression run, starting off at easy pace and then running the last 5 to 10 minutes of that progression run. Typically, I would work my way down towards 10K pace to maybe half marathon pace, so somewhere around that lactic threshold. And then you can build the length of that progression run as well, work your way up to perhaps 45 or 60 minutes. And again, this workout can be done once or twice per week in the base phase. And so to clarify, if you're doing a regular steady state run and a progression run, that's enough for 1 week. You don't want to do more than 2 of these moderate days per week. Another approach would be to instead of doing a steady longer effort, 30 or 45 minutes long, another approach would be to break up this type of run-in into intervals. And so something like 5-minute intervals at your marathon pace, or if you're a 5K runner, take your 5K pace and then add 1 minute per mile to that pace. So for example, a 18-minute 5K runner would run these type of intervals at 6:45 to maybe 7-minute pace. And so it's not very fast, but it's significantly faster than your easy run, and so you engage proper run-in mechanics a little bit more than you do in your easy run. And so 5-minute intervals, you'd want to have full recovery again, so at least 3 minutes recovery, and you can do a set of perhaps 5 or 6 times 5 minutes at marathon pace. And again, this workout addresses similar adaptations as the steady state 45-minute run at marathon pace, but it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier on your body because you're breaking it up into small intervals. And so you could maybe get away with doing this workout more times per week, perhaps 3 or 4 times per week even. But again, when you're adding faster run-in, it's important to make sure that the focus of your training is still low intensity run-in during the base phase. So something like the 80-20 rule definitely applies here, where you want 80% of your run-in to be slower than marathon pace at least, right? And then 20% of your running can be at marathon pace or faster. Our final tip is to make sure that your aerobic base training lasts an appropriate number of weeks, right? So there's a certain amount of time that you need to focus on aerobic base building in order to optimize the adaptations that you're looking for in the body. And so a base training phase is most effective if it's between about 6 and 12 weeks long. Any shorter than 6 weeks and you just don't have enough time to get the adaptations that you're looking for, like increased mitochondrial density, increased capillaries in your muscles, increased stroke volume of your heart, and just increased resilience of your muscles and tendons and bones. All these things takes time. All these things take time, and you want to make sure that you devote at least 6 weeks to aerobic base training to see the benefits. But at the same time, it's also important not to stagnate in your training and go too long without introducing a new stimulus. So if you're in this routine of aerobic base training for up to 12 weeks, that's great. But after about 12 weeks, it's time to introduce some new workouts and some new training stresses so that your body continues to adapt and doesn't stagnate. And so you want to make sure that when you're planning your aerobic base training, that you leave about 6 to 12 weeks for it, when you're keeping in mind the goal race, when that goal race is occurring. All right, that's it for today's video. I hope you found these tips useful and interesting. And if you did, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on our future videos. And run energized.